Hey everybody, feel free to gather around if you would. Please don't be shy. Please feel free to fill in a little bit towards the front here. If you want to. Right there. Ooh, the Misty whistle worked a lot better. Chris Hansen is very lonely up front. Can somebody join Chris Hansen up front? Yeah, please don't stand behind the box. That's like kind of scary back there. Is the shot from the overhead up there, Mallory? Shots from that overhead. Okay, all right, so we're clear no matter where anybody stands. You're not going to block a shot, don't worry about it. All you very conscientious TV people not wanting to stand in front of cameras. Well, hi everybody. Welcome to 9 News. Welcome back to 9 News for it looks like about 80 or 90% of the room. We're very glad that you're here. Thank you for joining us tonight as we celebrate the life of Corky Scholl. And special thank you to Melissa and Amelia and Max for being here tonight. And thank you for all the years that you shared Corky with us and shared Corky with the community and all of his interests that made Colorado a better place. And we're so appreciative that you're here with us tonight. If we have not met, and that might be 2 or 3 people in the room, hi, my name's Kyle Clark. I work here at 9 News. And it was Corky Scholl's work that drew me to 9 News 18 years ago. It was a story called King James. Show of hands for anybody who knows King James. Okay. A year in the life of a homeless blues musician. And as a young journalist, I had never seen anything like it. The kind of thoughtfulness and commitment to elevating one person's story and voice, I wanted to work with people like that. I wanted to work with Corky. I wanted to work with Adam Schrager. But that was Corky. And that is the legacy of photojournalism at KUSA. Corky did what he did for King James over and over again for Coloradans who otherwise might have been overlooked or who would have lived their lives in the shadows. And he helped us better understand our neighbors through his eyes and through his deep empathy. He was an incredible ambassador for 9 News, but I also think he was an incredible ambassador for journalists everywhere. If the only journalist you ever met was Corky Scholl, you would have a very high opinion of journalists because he treated every person that he met with respect and with care. A couple years ago, Corky spent a day on a street corner with a guy named DJ Valdez. And DJ would stand on that street corner each July 14th, and he would hold a sign in memory of his sister who had died of an overdose. And the sign simply said, "You are loved." DJ just wanted to see more kindness in the world. And he got to spend a day with Corky Scholl. Pretty perfect. DJ sent me a note after Corky passed away. And I think that DJ speaks for thousands of Coloradans who were interviewed by and had their story told by Corky Scholl over the past few decades. DJ wrote, "Corky was an incredible human being. He helped me quite a bit that day, and I am forever grateful to him. I am honored to have met him and spend those few hours alongside. I am deeply saddened for his passing. His skill in storytelling is a huge part of why we watch 9 News. Meeting him and watching him put together my story was a blessing to me and my family." I want to tell one quick lighter story and then pass the mic off to other folks. So one of the great joys of working in local TV news, as everybody in this room knows, is that you get to spend your holidays at work far from your family, frantically trying to fill time in a newscast that virtually no one will watch. About 16, 17 years ago, Corky and I spent Thanksgiving together at work. And as far as holiday assignments go, we were actually supremely lucky because we came in with a story set up that day. We had covered a house fire in Green Valley Ranch earlier in the week, and the family that had been forced out of their home by this fire had such an incredible attitude when we met them that day. They, were just saying, listen, we're safe, we're okay, we're going to go spend Thanksgiving at a relative's house. Everybody's going to be together. We're going to have this big Thanksgiving spread. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be fine. Don't worry about us in our house. So Corky and I asked if we might come over for a couple of hours on Thanksgiving and do a story about gratitude through the eyes of this family. And they agreed. So we got there about noon on Thanksgiving. And I remember the guys were outside, they were frying the turkey, and most of the women were inside, and they were laughing, and they were joking around. And as we walked around and talked to people, we realized that every single one of them was higher than a giraffe's ass. They were all so high, they were incapable of giving us a coherent soundbite about gratitude or Thanksgiving or anything else. So I was like a brand new reporter here, and I was in a panic. And Corky was like, "It's okay, it's gonna be fine." So we're outside with them, and they're deep frying the turkey in the huge pot of oil over the burner, and all I can think about is those stereotypical TV news stories about the dangers of deep frying a turkey over a live fire, and I'm getting even more panicked, and Corky's like, "Man, it's okay, it's gonna be all right." And I mean, so this family, God bless them, I don't judge. They had just lost their home. They were having a rough week. They were getting through it however they needed to get through it. But these folks were so baked, they never even served Thanksgiving dinner. They never even sat down to Thanksgiving dinner. So I called our producer, who I think was Anita Dill or Liz Lambert, if I remember correctly. And if we have not discussed this previously, I am in a state of panic. We had nothing. We had no heartwarming Thanksgiving story. We had no usable sound bites. We had some VO of people sitting around and laughing. And our producer was like, "Well, it's Thanksgiving. I have a 2.5-minute hole in my show. You guys gotta give me something." I turned to Corky, and Corky's like, "Yeah, it's going to be okay." And then he calmly goes to work, rattling off all these shots of the food, of the turkey, shots of people smiling and shots of people laughing. And Corky guided me through writing a video essay with no sound about the joy of togetherness and family at Thanksgiving. And it was probably the best thing in that newscast that nobody watched. I have worked a lot of Thanksgivings over the years, and that is the only one that I remember. I'd like to have us hear now from Tim Ryan, longtime assistant news director and news director at 9 News.
I didn't write anything down, so there's no way to know how this is going to go. I'm sorry. Thanks to Ann and whoever else at 9 News agreed to let me come and say a few words about Corky. I'm honored to do that. I keep the 9 pin in a place of honor until it's confiscated. So if it's ever confiscated, then that'll be a different story, but I wear it with pride, and I always will. I have this vivid memory of Corky. About 12 years ago, December, mid-December, I'm walking in the editing area, and for those of you who know the building, you remember there were 2 large editing rooms that are now gone. The beta tapes and the DV cam tapes are sitting there now. And Corky was in one of those rooms, and he said very quietly, as he almost always did, "Tim, do you have a minute to chat?" I had no idea what he wanted to chat about, but sure. "What's going on, Corky?" So he shows me a story that I, and to my knowledge, nobody had any idea Corky was working on. Linda Kehe knows the story. Linda Katsaftis knows the story. Because I watched that story, And my eyes kind of kept growing bigger the entire time. The story became known as the motel life. And this started because Corky, I think, had been assigned to cover a homicide scene on Colfax. And we cover homicide scenes from time to time on the news. And Corky figured out that there was a whole world under that 30-second voiceover about a homicide on Colfax. And the world was about the people who exist in between being on the street and being in a comfortable home. Basically, the working poor, people that we rarely engage with, rarely talk about, and should talk about, and should know about. And Corky figured that out. And he spent, I still to this day don't know how he did it, he spent his own time. There had to be unreported overtime. I'm sorry, Mark and Patricia, there was unreported. There had to be, because he had to go on his own time to get to know these people and to get their story. And when it finished, I thought to myself, that's the best story I've ever seen. I was not given the gifts that Corky and others have received in terms of the ability to make the form perfect. And Corky had the ability to make the form perfect. He knew composition, he knew lighting, he knew audio, he knew how to create editing in a rhythm that keeps you watching the thing, whatever it is, whatever the thing is, it keeps you watching. And that would be one thing. That he had extraordinary gifts in all those categories. But the humanity that was inside Corky, his ability, I don't know many people that could have gotten that story. If you consider yourself to be a pushy journalist, let me say there is nothing wrong with that. The world needs pushy journalists. We need to cause trouble in the world. We need to hold people accountable. We need to stir things up. We need to sometimes, shout over the noise at times. But we also need journalists like Corky that have this deep, deep understanding of that life is a struggle for people. And his calling was to show that to us, because we should have known about those people. We should have understood them. They're our neighbors, and we just ignore them. And Corky didn't. He did not ignore them. He was the most polite person I think I've ever probably met in this business. I had to have done things that irritated Corky, because I pretty much irritated everybody at one time or another. I had to have. And he never conveyed that to me at any moment, not even with a look, no body language, no what kind of stupid idea is that, that other people would just say right to me, right? And he would never do that. And that is unusual and special. And when I think of Corky, I think I should work harder to be quieter, to listen better, and to be kinder, and in other words, to be more like Corky was. And I think if we all did that, what a wonderful world this would be. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. So a tiny sliver of Corky's enormous legacy is all of the photojournalists who got interested in KUSA or came to KUSA because they wanted to be like Corky, or they wanted to work alongside Corky. And he was brought to KUSA by another exceptional photojournalist who carried on the tradition that started a generation before him. So I'd like to welcome Eric Kehe, our former chief photographer.
Oh, goodness, it's waiting for me. Okay, guys. Well, Tim said he didn't write his down, and it was wonderful. Well, I did write mine down, and I have no idea how this is going to turn out, so here I go. So, 21 years ago, I mean, many of you were still in elementary school. one of our best photojournalists decided to leave 9 News. And that would have left a very big void in our staff. And my goal as the director of photography was to help our station maintain its reputation for excellence in photojournalism and storytelling. And we wanted to be the best in the country. So I knew I needed to reload with somebody very talented to replace him. We posted the job, and the resumes started coming in. And after about 3 months and 200 resumes later, nothing caught my attention. Nothing had that creative flair that I was looking at. So I deployed a different strategy, and I started calling all the chiefs around the country, especially the Gannett chiefs. We were Gannett at the time. And I would ask them, who's the best photographer in your market, in your city, in your region that you can't hire, but you would love to get rid of? And lo and behold, Corky Scholl's name kept popping up. So I gave him a call, and indeed, he was interested. So I asked him to send me a resume tape, and it blew me away. The stories he told here, he started doing many, many years ago in Minneapolis. So we flew him out, showed him the station, toured the town, introduced him to some people. Everybody loved him. I offered the job, and he said yes, but I was worried. What was I getting this poor kid into? I was worried that he was so shy and quiet that we would send him out into the field on his own, and he would never ask a question in a news conference, or we'd send him to a spot news story, and he would never get to the bottom of what happened. But what I thought was his weakness turned out to be his strength. So yes, he was shy and quiet, but he was compassionate and kind. And I think people sensed that, and in order to make the situation feel less awkward, they opened up to him and carried the conversation in order to make Corky feel more comfortable. Can you imagine? Tim pointed this out. Using patience and kindness as a means to telling some of the best stories we've ever seen in local news. It was the Corky way. He made our station better and our community better by opening our eyes, introducing us to unknown characters, and telling stories we never even knew existed. I used to tease Corky that he got his name because he was so loud and boisterous and talkative that he needed to put a cork in it. The running joke at our staff meetings and gatherings was that I would finish by telling Corky that he was being way too loud and to keep it down. Corky would do his little Corky chuckle, apologize, and promise to be more quiet the next time. The truth is, he was one of the kindest, thoughtful, and humble gentlemen I've ever met. So Corky, wherever you are, please, one last time, keep it down. We're all talking about you down here, and we have nothing but wonderful things to say. Now, we have a lot of producers here, and as a show producer, I know I'm going to ask you to do something that seems a little out of order, but it will make for a good transition leading into our next segment. So everybody, please join me for Corky, for a job well done, and a life well lived. This is for Corky.
In addition to being an exceptional journalist and a one-of-a-kind photojournalist, Corky Scholl was also a great colleague and a great friend. I have been told that working at 9 News can sometimes be an intimidating experience. I'm not sure what they mean, but I've heard it from enough people that I believe it. But Corky made everyone feel at home here, and he helped everybody to do their best work. And he wasn't just a colleague. He was a wonderful friend to so many people who have worked at 9 News over the years. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Ben Muly, former 9 News photographer and friend of Corky's.
Again, like everybody else, didn't write anything down. But I did call my friend Leighton Grant, and I'm like, hey, I'm they've asked me to do something about Corky, and I don't know what to do. And he's the best writer I've ever met. And I'm more of a video guy. I'm actually more of a, like, let's try to just make slide and go home guy. And then I don't even remember, I think it was like 2007 or 2008. I was working at KSDK in St. Louis. I was working overnights at that time. That was America's most dangerous city. And all I covered was homicides, house fires, car accidents. And if they were all fatal, we called it like the golden sombrero. And it was like, my background, I went to school for engineering. Like, I don't know that I want to do this anymore. Like, I wanted to do it so bad that I moved across the country and started it. But I'm like, I don't like this. And my chief photographer at the time, Eric Voss, sitting in the photog lounge, enjoying that photog lounge, union money, y'all. It was pretty rad. Anyway, I want to get into that. And Eric Voss comes by and he's like, hey man, you should like take a look at this. And it was this tape, and it was the great Scott, the Etch-a-Sketch guy, King James, and then there was this other reporter named like Boyd Hooper, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? So I called my friend Eric Voss that I've known since middle school, and he was a reporter in Asheville, North Carolina, and he was like, I can probably get you a job here. But I was like newly married, and I just bought a house, and I'm like, well, I don't know, like, what do you guys pay? And he's like, I don't know, like 25, 26. And I'm like, well, that's a pay cut, but like, I'll go. Y'all, it was $25,000 a year, not $25 an hour. And so I got to Asheville, and then I met Leighton, and it was crazy. And Eric, I'm so sorry. I didn't see you earlier. I should have. So I was one of those like 300 applicants where he was like, not good enough, not good enough. Now we're just like, Patty is super desperate. We just got to hire somebody. And it turned out to be me. And so I moved to Denver, moved my family to Denver, and my very first story, it's to go film a gymnast in somewhere in Metro Denver. I don't remember. This was a long time ago, y'all. It's like 16, 17 years. And I didn't realize we were going to have to use the little cameras. So any other KUSA photographers know, like, there's the big cameras, and then there's the little cameras. I'd never used a little camera, and I'm like, oh no. So we get there, use the little camera, come back to the station, put everything in to Eddie's. I've been like an avid editor for 25 years, but I'm like, I can learn this on the fly. We can make this happen day one. I forgot to turn the mic on. And I'm like, this is, okay, that hurts. This is not good. This is day one. This is not good. And then after the show, my close friend and mentor, Kyle Park, comes up to me and was like, hey, can we expect that in the future? And I'm like, well, no, I will do better. And then we go on to the late shows, and Liz Lambert comes running in my edit bay, and she's like, are you going to make slide? I'm like, Liz, that's what I do. I always make slide. And she's like, well, your package runs in 3 minutes. And I'm like, it's like 9:57. We got like an hour and 3 minutes. And she's like, no, our 10 o'clock is at 10. And I'm like, oh no. Like, and then I was like, I am not going to make slide. This is not going to happen. And I was not feeling great about my job, about my place in the world, about picking up and moving a lot of states away that includes Kansas, which is very big, and it takes a long time in a 1998 Jeep Cherokee with no AC. And I'm like, oh, they're gonna fire me. This is like, they're totally gonna fire me. And after that happened, Corky walks in the room, and he's like, hey man, like, I'm Corky. And I'm like, yeah dude, I know who you are. Like, you're pretty much the reason I'm here and changed my entire career and like left my friends and family. So nice to meet you. And he was like, well, can you come check this out? And I have thought about this. It took me 4 days to drive here from Asheville. And I've thought about it over and over again on the way here. And I don't remember what the story was. I don't remember what it was. I just remember he showed me the story and was like, do you think they'll run this on the weekends? And I was like, sorry, TV crew, fuck you. That was awesome. Like, of course they're gonna run that. That's like the best thing I've ever seen. And so that was the first day I met him, you know, and then we worked together and we did these things, and I remember I was so homesick. Like, I'm a child of the South. I'm used to living in the South. I'm used to being around, like, the plants of the South, the greenness of the South, the people of the South. You know, I had people making fun of me the way I said Wi-Fi, and they were like, I was super homesick. And I remember Corky was like, out of the blue, like, hey, are you homesick? Yeah, man, I'm super homesick. Do you want to come to Thanksgiving? And I was like, yeah, I actually do want to come to Thanksgiving. And so I went. And that's where I met Melissa, who, as awesome as Corky is, she's like, as I told her tonight, my third favorite person in the world. There's like Gandhi. I kind of like the new Pope. And Melissa. And that dinner that night, I met her, like, look at her kid. Like, her kid was like tiny. This was so long ago. And I remember that night, she made us cauliflower mashed potatoes. This is before it was cool, y'all. Way before. And I have made that dish for the last 25 years to give to people. Like, I just want to make you something healthy, to show you that I care about you, and that we love you. And the other thing she told me, which is one of my top 3 favorite things I've ever heard, which is, you can use honey buns as currency in prison. And so, y'all, I loved all the Corky stories, like Violence to Victory, and Dream Park is one of mine, as a former skater before I got fat and old, one of my favorite stories of all time. But I hope everybody takes away, the most important thing he was is kind. And so you may not be the best storyteller. You may not be the best photographer. You may not be the best producer or anchor or, producer for that night, sometimes when you yell at people. But we can all be kind. And it doesn't take a lot. It just takes like, hey, do you want to come? Like, you look sad. You want to come to Thanksgiving and meet super cool people like my wife and her kids and learn how to survive in prison. So I love Corky. Thank you. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Ben. So being a reporter sent out with Corky, you'd like to say that like every day was some revelation because of his talent and his kindness, but this is local news, so some days are just garbage, right? But a day with Corky was at the worst just like a really good hang, and at the best was like going to grad school for free, right? So you were guaranteed one of those two things no matter what you were up to that day. And one of the reporters who was also privileged to work with Corky over the years and became his good friend is Tom Trong.
So first off, to Melissa, Max, and Amelia, my condolences. I remember when you guys came down to New Orleans and visited me when I left and came back to New Orleans. We had a great time, and in true Corky fashion, he started asking me, he's like, hey, do you guys have any disappearing electric signs here and neon signs? I was like, I got you, man. Like, I know the spots, I'll take you. And I think that really encapsulates my relationship with Corky. Like many people here, I didn't prepare any remarks. I just came here to love on Corky. I didn't have the privilege of working with Corky all the time, and the one thing about Corky was we sought each other out when we weren't working together, which is what made him so cool to me. Obviously, his reputation preceded him, but I didn't get to work with him. I didn't know any of his stories, and to be honest, I was the turd shiner when I got here. I was the guy that was going to do the other stuff that nobody else wanted to do. I had to play my position, PYP. I learned that early on in life. But Corky never cared about that. Whenever he worked with me, he gave me like 100% maximum effort. I don't know if I gave him quite the same, but he was always understanding of why we were together. And we just developed this relationship. We used to talk hip hop, and that's how we meandered into Dan Erickson. I know he's out here somewhere, Dan, Scientologist. Corky's like, hey, I know this guy. It's going to be a pretty cool story. Because he knew I loved the Notorious B.I.G. I was like, Biggie Smalls? Is like, he's going to put Biggie Smalls on a stop sign? That's going to be a great story. And Corky took me out to meet Dan, and that was the connective tissue that you gained from Corky. He would put you in connection with somebody else that you wouldn't be in touch with. And for me, as a Vietnamese refugee, I was always down with that. Like, this is all gravy on top of the potatoes to be doing what I do. I never saw this as a job, and I don't think Corky ever did either. And I think that's why we got along. And I think that's how it got me the privilege to help him move into, what was that house? Where's Melissa and Amelia? Do you guys remember, what was that house like in 08 or 07? You still there? Yeah. I had a crappy apartment off of Colfax right next to Emerson, next to Charlie's. Is Charlie still there? Yes. That's why Corky and I got together. And I think we got along because that was sort of my speed. That's my hood. And I think if you boiled it down, Corky was all about Colfax. That's his hood too. And every time he shot on Colfax, he would knock on my door. And we'd walk out, get catcalled next to Charlie's, and go next to the Fillmore. And that's what we did. I never really got to work with Corky that much, but he was always just a solid dude, a solid person. And you don't meet many people like that in life. And when you guys came down to New Orleans, it's crazy to see you guys all grown up now, Max and Amelia, but it was all love, you know, and that, to me, embodies Corky, and I'll always remember that. And I only was working here 3 years, but Corky sought me out when we didn't have to, and I sought him out when we didn't have to. It wasn't about work, it was all about love. And that's all I can say about Corky. He's well-loved, and he'll be certainly missed. He was one of the great guys, and yeah. Colfax always, baby.
Next, we're going to hear from Ann Herps, who is our current director of visual journalism and somebody who is an exceptional leader for our photo team because she is so much like Corky and how she loves people and cares for people and wants the best for every single person here. And as I have told her in the last couple of weeks, and I wish I had told Corky, that she has put together a photo staff that is so much like him. So much like him. So, Ann Herps.
my photo team come up here because I'm a weakling. My photographers, the photographers on, the photojournalists at 9 News. Because whenever we'd have a review, Corky and I would have our yearly review, we would talk about you guys. Like, that's what we would talk about. We wouldn't talk about his work because that was great, and I'd call him a magical unicorn like I always did. But we talked about how much we cared about you guys and how talented we thought all of you guys were and are. So thank you. These guys are rad. I did write stuff down because I'm freaking out, but there are so many awesome storytelling techniques to be stolen from Corky Scholl. Music recorded on scene used as a soundtrack. Silence as a Nat sound break. Making the most of like the itty bitty giggles and moments. A shot held a second or 2 or 3 or 4 longer than most people would ever try to attempt. Those and more are totally worth stealing, and I do a lot. Why would you not steal from the person that I called the magical unicorn? But the best thing to steal from Corky is his appreciation for the job that we do. He didn't take for granted how great this job is. He told me how much he still loved it when I asked him why he hadn't taken his drone test yet. It was because he said he'd rather shoot stories than study. He made it very clear to me that he hated to study. Corky's love for his job didn't have anything to do with the awards that he won, and he won a lot. It was because he got to spend time with people like Dan Erickson, who Corky did multiple stories about during his time at 9 News. Showing gratitude, appreciation, and keeping in touch with people like Dan who open up and share with us. That's the best storytelling technique of them all.
It's special just being able to spend the time together and create something together in the same space at the same time. My name's Dan Erickson. This is my son Omen, and we are both artists. We're at Hazel on South Pearl. We have an art show that we did together. My work is displayed next to Omen's work. At some point, I always wanted to do a show with Omen. From the time he did his very first piece, I had thought, oh, this would be great if I could maybe have him do a show with me someday. I didn't think it would be this soon, but I think with the way that COVID is affecting businesses and galleries like this, it seemed like just a good chance to pitch it to the curator and say, would you be open to me showing some work with my son? Just as something different and something maybe a little more uplifting than your typical just art on a wall type of show. My hope is just to be able to show what we created while we were in quarantine together, and hopefully bring some of the joy that we experienced during that creation process just to the people viewing it, because it's kind of hard to find that silver lining these days. Family is more important than work, but it is also important to work together as a family in times like this. What do you think, Omen?
Family is more important than work.
I love you.
Love you too, Dad.
So you might be wondering why I didn't show a 10-minute epic like Motel Life or his 5-point story. And part of it is because I knew Tim Ryan was going to be speaking and I didn't want it to go very long. But also part of it was because when I asked Corky why he wasn't doing those stories as much anymore, he said it's because he liked the challenge of getting something beautiful done in a day. And that doesn't happen to a lot of photojournalists. They want to do these big, grand stories as they get older, and that wasn't what he was about. And now we have Dan, who's featured in like 4 or 5 different Corky stories. Like, how lucky is that?
I'm used to hiding behind my art. When I first met Corky, it was on Colfax in 2008. A few of my artist friends and I were promoting an upcoming show, and we invited him inside to check out our pop-up. The very next week, Corky featured my art on the news at the show that we were promoting. From that moment on, we stayed in touch and we exchanged ideas for news features, inspiring each other creatively. Working with Corky was always a pleasure. He had a genuine way of making me feel comfortable sharing my story. Over the years, he highlighted important milestones in my artistic journey, from an art show with my mom to most recently, the exhibit with my son. That was the last piece we worked on together. Both are career highlights that I will always treasure. Corky and I shared a passion for signs and even the same taste in hats. Even when he wasn't behind the camera at some of my events, he made it a point to come out and support me, despite his busy schedule. I'm deeply honored to have been able to call Corky a friend, and will truly miss the opportunity to work with him. Thank you, Corky. Thank you, 9 News, for all the memories and support. Melissa, Amelia, Max, love to you. Thank you.
Anne talked about Corky's desire to stay plugged into the news of the day. And it just occurred to me that that has allowed his impact to touch generations of reporters here because of the fact that he was interested in working with folks on the GA beat 20 years ago when it was me and Ton, or these days when it's reporters including Ria Jha.
All right, I did write something down because I'm also freaking out a little bit. So the image that keeps popping into my head when I think about Corky is his grin, that smile, that laugh that you couldn't just help but laugh back at. For the people who don't know me, my name is Ria. I'm a general assignment reporter here for almost 2 years. So when Anne asked me to speak today, I was very surprised, especially after seeing the list of people going before me. She told me she didn't want it to all be old people. Sorry for throwing you under the bus. So here I am, serving my purpose as the youthful representative. Sorry. All that to say, I know I didn't know Corky as long as most of you did, but I can tell you about the 1.5 years that I did have with him and the impact that he left on me. I worked Tuesdays through Saturdays, so did Corky, so I got super lucky, worked with him a lot, and especially on Saturdays. On our way to shoots, we'd talk about everything and anything. We usually started with our weekend plans, which usually involved with a cocktail with Melissa, or seeing his son play in his new band, or his daughter's new tattoo shop. We talk about life, about work, sometimes random things, sometimes very, really random things. The last time I worked with him, we spent a whole hour talking about the Nathan's hot dog eating competition. Full hour. After hearing everyone speak at his memorial a few weeks ago, and even today, I realized the connection I had with him wasn't super special. Corky had connections with almost everyone he worked with, and it takes a really rare type of person to make so many people feel so seen. As a reporter, I always looked to Corky to see what I was missing. He'd be shooting things that didn't seem related to the story, and a lot of the times, honestly, they weren't. I remember him climbing up on things despite his bad knee and needing to take 2 steps on each step to get to the next step, but he would still try to get to the highest ground possible in order to get that shot. There's one clip I wanted to share. It's from a story we did in Aspen. It was the end of the day. It was a very long day. We were exhausted. All we needed to do was film this look live. And you know how that goes. It just wasn't happening. Every noise on earth was happening. So I just wanted to play that, and we can...
Again, they gave Mark Ty until May 16th to take down the signs, or else he may potentially face fines or jail time.
That was the loudest
I know.
UPS truck
What was that?
ever.
I was like, is that last time? If I don't get it this time, then we're not leaving. 3, 2, 1.
I thought the one you did was really good.
Okay. Just thinking about if he wants to make more steps forward or not.
I have rewatched that so many times. One, just to hear his laugh. And even that pan towards the loudest mop cart on earth was just, it was so him. He found humor in the chaos. He found beauty in the ordinary. We all know Corky was a legend, and his attitude towards life, his curiosity, his kindness, the joy he brought to every shoot. That's what I'll always remember. I miss seeing his smile. I miss hearing his laugh. But I think that's exactly what he'd want to think about. He'd want us to think about when we remembered him. The way he showed up for people with humor, heart, and humility is something I'll always aspire to. Thank you.
And lastly tonight, I'd like to welcome up the general manager of 9 News, Mark Cornetta, to say a bit about what Corky meant to the organization, the people here, and a few words about how we will remember him in the future.
I'm apparently one of the old guys. But I'm going last. She didn't mention the people that followed her, so my guess is she wasn't thinking about that, and so it's sort of like a double hit, right? First of all, thank you everyone for being here this evening. On behalf of all of us at 9 News, I want to begin by thanking Melissa, Corky's children, Amelia and Max, for allowing us to share this very special moment. We are deeply grateful to be here today to celebrate Corky, his life, and the impact he had on all of us. Corky was more than just an award-winning photojournalist. He was a storyteller in the truest sense of the word. Through his lens, he captured not just images, but the heart of Colorado, its people, its communities, and its spirit. His work helped our community see itself more clearly and more compassionately. But as remarkable as his work was, it's the person Corky was that we will remember most. He was kind, he was compassionate, he was the ultimate team player. In a business that is often high-pressured and fast-paced, Corky brought calm, perspective, and a sense of humanity. I never once heard him say a bad word about anyone, and that in and of itself says so much about his character. What made Corky special is that he lifted people up. He encouraged colleagues. He treated everyone with respect. He carried himself with humility. He reminded us that even on the hardest days, there's joy to be found in the work we do and the people we do it with. Melissa, please know that Corky's 9 News family will always carry his spirit with us. We admired him not only for his talent, but for his goodness. And to Amelia and Max, your dad's legacy is written not only by the countless stories that he told with his camera, but in the way he treated people. That is a legacy any of us would be proud to leave. As we remember Corky today, let us carry forward his example to treat each other with kindness, to approach every story with compassion, and to remember, as he always showed us, that our work matters because people matter. Thank you, Corky, for sharing your gifts, your heart, and your friendship. We will miss you deeply, but we'll carry you with us always. And finally, as we remember Corky tonight, we also want to make sure his spirit continues to guide our newsroom in the years ahead. That's why we're proud to introduce the Corky Scholl Memorial Award for Compassionate Journalism, honoring the lens that sees the heart of the community. Each year, this award will recognize a 9 News journalist whose storytelling reflects Corky's own values: compassion, integrity, collaboration, and a deep respect for the people behind every story. It's our way of ensuring that the qualities that made Corky so special, his humanity, his humility, and his heart, remain at the center of who we are and what we do. Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening.
Thank you, Mark, and again, thank you all for being here. We invite you to, again, have conversation with old friends and colleagues as we remember Corky and his life, and feel free to take a look around if it's been a while since you've been here. Poke your head in the newsroom, turn a VOSOT if you would. Talk about the room, talk about Corky's room, yes. So Ann and our photo staff had a great idea of how we could remember Corky and continue to be inspired by his Zen-like chill feel in his edit bay, which was a nice place to step into. You come out of the noisy newsroom and you walk in there and you say, hey, what's up? You know, you had like the velvet painting on the wall and like the cool lamp and everything else, and all of those mementos and more live on in a room that is now going to be open to all of our staff when they need a moment to just take a breath, sit down, think about the things that are more important than whatever the story is you're working on that day, and to pour yourself into doing the best work possible, just like Corky did every day. It's a really special space. And I think when you walk in, I walked in for the first time today, you'll just think, this feels like Corky. So would invite you all to check out that space just past the newsroom. So thank you all for being here. Have a good night.